Hello everyone and welcome back to this week's video. This week we are exploring Lady Macbeth and the representation of gender within Shakespeare's play Macbeth. Okay, so as always we are looking at the authorial intention. So what is Shakespeare's intention in the presentation of Lady Macbeth and the links with gender, so femininity and masculinity within the play. So first of all, Shakespeare uses Lady Macbeth's character to warn against unnatural women who were perceived as dangerous within Jacobean society. And you obviously understand the links between these unnatural women and the perception of witches at the time. Shakespeare also uses Lady Macbeth's character to condemn the act of witchcraft and any associations with the supernatural as being subversive in society. And as you all are very aware, King James I had his own personal obsession with witchcraft, and he wrote his own book called Demonology in exploring witchcraft and his condemnation of it. Shakespeare also uses Lady Macbeth's character to warn against the rejection of the great chain of being. Lady Macbeth herself steps outside of her role given to her by God, which is a subordinate to men. So, as we are looking at the representation of gender within the play Macbeth, this is a question that often comes up, and the question is Shakespeare a feminist? Now, because of the period that Macbeth is written in, which is the Jacobean era, this was a time when women were viewed as being submissive, subservient and subordinate. And I just want to pause there and just draw your attention to that prefix sub. Okay, so in submissive, subservient and subordinate. And what that prefix means is that it denotes something that is under or below. Okay, and it shows us that women were viewed as being lower in rank. So therefore, it's impossible to attach that title of feminist to Shakespeare, because feminism occurred hundreds of years later. Okay, the movement was very slow. So in this time of the Jacobean era, women were completely viewed as being the subordinate within society. But there are people who argue that Shakespeare could be viewed as a proto-feminist. So a proto-feminist means like they have the ideas, but they are only seeds because of the nature of society at the time. So it's like before feminism existed, Shakespeare did portray some pretty strong characters in his plays. But you've also got to remember that Shakespeare wrote his plays to gain political favour from the current monarch, whether it was Queen Elizabeth or King James I. So although Shakespeare did include women that had agency, which means free will, and their own personal ambition, that it was different to their husbands or their fathers within the plays, this is usually where their freedom ends, because these women are often, in Shakespeare's plays, punished with death at the end, which ultimately aligns with patriarchal expectations that women were expected to be confined to complete subordination. So before we explore Lady Macbeth's presentation, I thought it was really important to look at this piece of vocabulary. Now, this might be something that you have already learned, this might be new information. And it's a really important piece of vocabulary to use when you are describing the women in the play, okay? Especially Lady Macbeth and the witches. Now, the word is transgressive, and this means that it involves a violation of moral or social boundaries. So, because we've just looked at this idea that women were viewed as being subordinates, and women being denied power in the Jacobean era, the only way to achieve some power was through transgressive behaviour, so through denying those social boundaries that were placed on women. And contextually, we understand that the condemnation of witchcraft within society, and witchcraft was predominantly thought to be completed by women. So this idea that women had some form of power within society were automatically labelled as witches and therefore punished through torture and death. And if we link this idea to Lady Macbeth as well, Lady Macbeth not only calls upon the assistance of the supernatural to assist her plans, but she also rejects her femininity to increase her chance of successful assistance of Macbeth's hamartia. Okay, and those actions, so the collusion with the supernatural plus the rejection of femininity, these actions would have been viewed by the audience as being completely transgressive. So the first way that Lady Macbeth is presented as a transgressive woman is through her rejection of femininity. And this is made obvious when she calls upon the spirits and says, "Come you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here." Now, during this time, women were deemed as being nurturing, gentle and subservient, as we have clarified, okay? And here, Lady Macbeth has already acknowledged that Macbeth has too many feminine qualities. So she complains that he is too full of the milk of human kindness. Therefore, because of that weakness of Macbeth's character that she identifies, she feels the need to purge her own feminine qualities, which she views as a weakness, because it means that if she purges these feminine qualities, she will take on more masculine qualities, which will therefore give her the strength and the power to assist Macbeth in his ambition to take the crown. Not only this, but Lady Macbeth is calling upon the witches and supernatural to assist her desire to purge these feminine qualities. So a very, very dark and murky, sinful behaviour that she is exhibiting in the first moment that the audience meet her. And this power is further strengthened through the use of the dual demands, so the come and the unsex. So this idea that this will enhance the audience's view that Lady Macbeth is a transgressive woman and an audience would fear her and her power. In addition to the previous quotation, Shakespeare further reinforces Lady Macbeth's transgressive character through the references to her feminine qualities and her desire to purge them. Now, the woman's breasts as a part of anatomy are an indicator of a woman's ability to home make and produce children. Okay, now for a Jacobean audience, this would have been viewed as a God-given gift and something that should have been honoured and not refused. So Lady Macbeth's character will have been viewed here as completely immoral. And Lady Macbeth's request to rid her of the function that was viewed as fundamental to a woman's role in society emphasises the evil lengths that Lady Macbeth is willing to go to succeed in her and her husband's ambition. And here, through her statement, "Come to my woman's breasts and take my milk for gall," Lady Macbeth desires her purpose and role as a woman to be completely eradicated, okay? Which reinforces her ambitious nature and this idea that she is completely keen to overthrow any feminine qualities that she would view to weaken her power, okay? And by removing her sole role as a woman in society, Lady Macbeth is presented as someone who is completely ruthless and unwilling to allow anything to stand in her way to so her and Macbeth's route to power. Again, later on in the play, when Lady Macbeth is manipulating her husband to complete the act of regicide, and she says to Macbeth, "Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it." Now, the use of imperatives here, look and be, is another indication of Lady Macbeth's domination in this scene and in this play, or at the beginning of the play. Her current role as a wife has been displaced by Shakespeare's presentation of her as being a partner, okay, so someone who is equal to, rather than the subordinate. which completely subverts Jacobean expectations of women. Shakespeare purposefully defies the sphere in which women were placed, the idea that they were supposed to be submissive and inferior to men, and this is perhaps to warn an audience of the dangerous consequences of powerful women. It's really important to look at the symbolism of the serpent and this idea that it has connotations of temptation and lost innocence through the serpent's link to the biblical story of Adam and Eve. And this is a further hint at the possible destruction of morality through the power of women and what women can cause through having anything other than the inferiority in Jacobean society. Now, Eve in the story of Adam and Eve represents everything about a woman a man should guard against, and therefore, in Shakespeare's play, it could be said that Lady Macbeth represents everything about a woman that Jacobean society should guard themselves against, okay? Again, reinforcing societal expectations that women should always be subordinate to men. And in this quotation, not only does Lady Macbeth subvert expectations through her orders, but she also proves to be Machiavellian, which means that she is conniving and scheming and clever in her tactics when she encourages Macbeth to maintain his facade to the king and Scottish noblemen. Okay, this idea that she's encouraging him to be duplicitous, and that would therefore enable Macbeth to succeed in his plot of regicide. This next quotation is the most graphic and gruesome imagery that Shakespeare creates through Lady Macbeth's character. And this is the moment when she is attempting to coerce Macbeth in completing the plot of regicide. And she says, "I have given suck and know how tender it is to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out." So, infanticide would have been viewed as the epitome of evil and wickedness in society. And through this vulgar and graphic description, Lady Macbeth attempts to encourage Macbeth to abandon his own moral compass. Through this savage language, Shakespeare's emphasising Lady Macbeth's desire to encourage him to complete the regicide. And this is language that he would most recognise as a warrior, okay? Because the graphic and brutal imagery of plucked and dashed is reminiscent of Macbeth's own savagery of unseamed, bloody execution, which further intensifies Lady Macbeth's own masculine traits as she's willing to commit this savagery, or she's saying she's willing to commit the savagery, in order to forge their path towards the throne. Shakespeare also creates links between Lady Macbeth and the witches throughout the play, and witches were often suspected of committing infanticide. So, as we know, this is the epitome of evil. Well, witchcraft was also viewed as that as well, okay? And through aligning Lady Macbeth with this imagery, her evil deeds and motives are inextricably linked to the supernatural, which is another indication to Shakespeare's audience that we must view Lady Macbeth as being transgressive, inherently wicked, and dangerous. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this idea that can we view Shakespeare as a feminist? Well, there are some people that view him as a proto-feminist, but what I said is that there are elements in Shakespeare's writing of powerful, autonomous women. However, more often than not, these powerful women are punished for their transgressive behaviour, and usually that is through death, okay? And in more specific to Lady Macbeth, this punishment is also her mental decline and her sort of reduction to completely a vulnerable and incapable character. So as we know, at the end of the play, Lady Macbeth is shown to be sleepwalking, troubled, and very vulnerable. Okay, until her death. So, one of the most important quotations in presenting this is the moment when she says, "All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand." And what Shakespeare's doing here is he's emphasising Lady Macbeth's descent into mental instability and fear. And this is done so that his audience are presented with the visible consequences of subverting both patriarchal and societal norms. So being that transgressive woman, of being wicked, an atypical woman, she is reduced to a broken and haunted figure on stage. And that is visible for the audience to see. In this moment, Lady Macbeth is reduced from this strong and vindictive force that she was presented at the very beginning of the play, where she was presented as being a partner to Macbeth rather than a subordinate, somebody who uses imperatives and is decisive and forceful, to be reduced to, on stage, a weakened, vulnerable and childlike form. The hyperbolic reference to all the perfumes of Arabia reinforces the overwhelming sense of guilt that Lady Macbeth feels towards her role in the regicide. Okay, she is suffering the consequences of her transgressive actions. And this response is what an audience will recognise as natural, a far cry from her original evil and malign language. It's also really interesting to look at even the adjective little and this idea that it's almost like she is being reduced to a vulnerable child, and she no longer is, attempting to emphasise her strength and power like she was at the beginning of the play, but now she is succumbing to the punishment. And again, Shakespeare cleverly shows Lady Macbeth's punishment on stage and visible for his audience. And it's important to look at sort of Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking, because that is part of her punishment and her decline of her mental ability. Now, the act of sleepwalking was often associated to those who were classed as sorcerers or those who were thought to be possessed by the devil. Therefore, here, Shakespeare's purposefully using Lady Macbeth's final appearance in the play to once again remind the audience of Lady Macbeth's association with the supernatural and witchcraft, and therefore acts as a warning against colluding with the devil. Okay, she is the epitome of evil and wickedness in the play because she aligns her femininity with the witches and supernatural. At the beginning of the play, she requests spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, to intervene and to help her purge her femininity. So here, Shakespeare's warning that this association has meant that her mind has been interfered with, and this has contributed to her mental decline. And finally is that idea that Shakespeare is supporting King James I's views that witches have the ability to corrupt society and create malevolent beings. So a new addition to the videos that will be implemented going forward is this recap slide, and this is just for you and your revision to make sure that you have absorbed the knowledge and that you have essentially taken away the key talking points of this video. So what I would do is, on a flashcard, I would try and answer the following questions without looking at my notes, and I would use this to revise later down the line when you come back to look at Lady Macbeth's character or the presentation of gender in Macbeth. So you need to understand, what does the word transgressive mean and how does this apply to Lady Macbeth's character? Why would Lady Macbeth's request to purge her femininity be viewed as shocking to a Jacobean audience? And lastly, how does Lady Macbeth's character link to the witches? So if you are able to confidently answer these questions, you know you can move on. If if you are struggling with answering a specific part of this, then I would go back and revise and secure your knowledge.